The San Onofre nuclear generating station shut down in January 2012 after a small radiation leak was detected on tubing inside two newly installed steam generators. Southern California Edison, which runs the plant, say they've lost millions of dollars by not producing power. Meanwhile, California ratepayers are still picking up the tab. Here with an update on the situation is Rochelle Becker, co-founder of the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility. She's also worked for many years with state and federal officials on nuclear safety issues. Rochelle, welcome.
Thank you so much.
How much money so far have ratepayers already paid for these faulty steam generators?
Well, there's sort of moving targets within the PUC case to identify all the costs, but I would say a minimum of $500 million would be in the ballpark.
Is there any chance that the ratepayers, will get any of this back?
Well, every party that's filed in this case, every participant except for the two utilities has said the ratepayers deserve to get their money back. So it will be an interesting proceeding to see whether or not the PUC represents the P in the PUC or the U in the PUC.
The public.
Or the utility.
Or the utility, absolutely. Is this kind of a tough battle?
I don't know. It's a new battle. This is a new challenge for the PUC as it is for the public and for the utilities. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces, and we have to do it carefully. And that's, I think, what the PUC is trying to do right now.
And certainly, I'm sure people will be watching the results to see what happens if something like this further down the road happens at another place. Aside from the steam generator problems, what other issues is San Onofre Power Nuclear, the plant, having?
Well, there are other aging issues at other nuclear power plants, and some are even phasing out because they can't pass it on to ratepayers. But the other issues are seismic issues. We have not resolved the seismic issues at San Onofre. Once through cooling issues, 1 million gallons a minute of water goes through, and the EPA says no longer, you have to do some alternatives. Those could be between $1 and $3 billion. Seismic studies between $1 and $3 billion if you have to do retrofits. There's the no insurance, no homeowners insurance, no business insurance, and a $12 billion liability limit by the federal government.
Those are for communities in a radius?
Right, in the fallout zone. And the fallout zone is 12 miles at San Onofre, 18 miles at Diablo, but the federal government said 50 miles in Japan. So what would it cost to expand the emergency planning zone? What would it cost to train and equip the emergency planners? There are so many unanswered questions, most of which came out of the Fukushima tragedy, but some of them have been in queue by the Energy Commission. They've been looking at them since 2005. We've been participating since 2005.
One of them, this plan, I want to let people know, was built in 1967.
It was designed in 1967. Correct.
Right. And as far as the waste on there, have things progressed on how they're dealing with nuclear waste?
There's thousands of tons of high-level radioactive waste sitting on site. In 1982, the federal government said, take it somewhere else. It's still there. The federal government has nowhere to take it. A seismically active coastal zone is not the place to store waste. A year and a half ago, the federal government said, we might want to leave it here for 300 years. Looking at those coastal bluffs today when we did an earlier interview and thinking 300 years those are going to be the same, I think is a bit optimistic.
How urgent is it to get this power plant either operating again or permanently shut down?
I think it's important to take our time to make sure that we've done everything right, because this is 2,200 megawatts of power. We're reliant on that, but when 2,200 megawatts doesn't run, it's missing that power. So San Diego's actually been a victim of poor decision-making by Edison. SDG&E didn't want to replace them. Had they not been replaced, the plant would have shut down in 2013. There would have been a plan on the table of how to replace those megawatts. None of that happened, so now we're in 2013 and just starting that process again.
One question I have about this, Edison wanted to restart the steam generators at 70% power by this summer, as you mentioned. But before the problem started, I want to say maybe 2005, they said they must run both reactors at 88% power to be cost effective.
That's correct.
Why did they change? Is there any evidence that things have changed enough to make that?
No, but there is a provision in the PUC that if they can get that plant operating for 90 days, they get to put it back in the rate base again. They get to start charging customers again.
But there's nothing technically that says that A, they either needed the 88% in the first place, or B, things have changed.
Those are questions that definitely will be investigated in the PUC decision. We're looking very closely at all of their filings, what they're talking about, what it costs, what they expect to charge ratepayers. You know, if shareholders want to restart this plant, if shareholders want to pay for all the things that are in this legislation that's upcoming, fine. But this is ratepayers, and we're tired of paying for things we're not getting.
Okay, we are out of time. Rochelle Becker, thank you so much for this update, and I'm sure we'll be following this as things progress.
Thanks, Peggy.